Hi, I'm Greg from the Laser channel where we learn, create, and share. And in today's Halloween project video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to create this spooky trick-or-treat ghost. Welcome back, and thanks for joining me for another video on the Laser channel. Throughout this video, I'm going to be sharing some tips and tricks that are more geared towards beginners. And I'm also going to be sharing you some variations that you can use to make this project your very own. To get started, let's check out where we can find the project file for this. And for that, we'll jump straight away into the computer. Pixabay. It's one of my favorite resources for free images for laser projects just like this one. To find my image, I went to the search bar, typed in ghost, and I took this pull-down menu that's normally on all images and I picked vectors, and I'm going to share with you in just a minute why I picked vector files to show up in the search here. As I scroll down here, we're going to see here's the graphic for this video. I also, on the next page that I'm going to show you, I've already logged in. You can do an email and password login, or I like to keep things easy. I just use the Google login account option. Now, this login, I have been using this for a long time and I have gotten absolutely zero emails, junk mail, or spam mail from Pixabay.com. When I click on that image, this is the next page that will show up. Here's the download button, and there's a pull down caret here, and this shows us the download options. And this is where I'm going to go back to why I picked vector images as part of the search engine. These PNG images are like a photo type image, and when we work with that in the laser software, a PNG file can only be engraved unless you manipulate that object or that photo in the software so that it can be cut out. That sounds a little complicated. It's an extra step that I really don't want to do. So here is a vector graphic that is an SVG file, and this will allow me to not only engrave the file or the image, it will allow me to cut it out so I can do whatever I want. I click download on here. Once I select that, this project, I'm using this ghost, but knowing that you have access now to Pixabay.com, you can explore all the different graphics in here to make this project your very own. In LightBurn, I've imported the ghost image already, and before I start working with this, I do want to zoom in and just check out everything around on this image because this project is cutting everything out. There's absolutely no engraving required for this project. And everything looks good so far. Except I do see there's a couple tiny little pieces here and I don't want to bother cutting out these little tiny pieces, so I'm just going to go around and delete those out. Same thing with these little triangles here. I'm just going to delete those out along with this one. When I select this image here, we're going to see the size up here, and I really don't like that size. I think it's far too small for this project, so I am going to make it larger. And check that out. I've got my graphic enlarged, and for the next steps that I'm going to do, we're actually going to take a close-up look at this project reference that I've got here so that we can see why I'm doing the next couple of steps. Here's a nice close-up, and we're going to see that this is a raised project, a 2-layer, and everything here has been cut out. So I've got this back layer, and then the ghost is going to be one color, the bag is another color. I've got that is the wrong color. I spotted that after I made this practice piece. But knowing that these are all separate pieces is going to help us make sense on the next step that I have in LightBurn. This is a 2-layer project, and for this I'm going to need 2 copies of the ghost. I'll select the ghost, Control-C to copy it, Control-V to paste that copy. I'll get that ghost right back up here. The ghost on the right-hand side, I'm going to use that for the outline, and the ghost on the left-hand side, I'm going to use that for all these colored cutout pieces. The ghost on the right, I'm going to highlight just the very outline, and I'm going to put that on layer 2. Layer 2 is going to be a cut layer, and for my machine, I have these speeds here of 20 millimeters per second, 100% power with 3 passes. The ghost on the left here, I don't need this outline, so I can select it and delete that out. And I'm going to highlight all these pieces, of course, being the cutout pieces. I'm going to throw those on layer number 2. And I still have all these pieces here that are left in the middle on the right-hand side, and I'm going to leave that in there. And the reason why I'm going to do that is once I cut out all these pieces on the left, I have to get them placed on this board here, and I might not get the spacing just right while the glue is setting. So to help myself out, I am going to click this layer here, and I'm going to press and hold down Shift and click that layer again. That's going to select everything that is on that layer, and I'm going to put that on layer 01. Layer 01 I'm going to use as a light engraving layer. So it's going to put just kind of like a score line, if you will. I have it set as line, so it's just continuous, but it's going to leave a mark that even after I paint this back layer, I will still see a faint line of that layer, and that's going to make it so much easier placing all these pieces on the left onto the part on the right. This all looks good, and I'm ready to start getting the laser machine set up. The laser machine I'm using for this project is the Ikier K1 Pro Max, and that features a 48-watt laser module. This thing is going to make quick work of this project. This laser module is also selectable down to 24 watts, which is used primarily when you're doing engraving. The honeycomb that I'm using, I've nicknamed shark tooth honeycomb because it's got all these rows and rows of shark teeth, and this is kind of what the industry is now moving towards because there's a lot more airflow underneath to allow that smoke and smoke residue to escape. The material that I'll be using for this project is 1/8" hard press board, and that looks like this. I bought mine as a 2-foot by 4-foot handy panel, and I just use a saber or skill saw to cut that down to a much more manageable size. If you don't want to jump into using a wood product right away, an alternative material would be to use some of this poster board. I get this from the Dollar Tree, and of course it's very inexpensive. You can also use just some regular paper cardboard. I've got another sheet down here that is black. Now, I found all the poster board at the Dollar Tree has a white core, so you can make this entire multi-layer project off of just one sheet. You can engrave just partially into this black poster board, revealing just the white core. So this is just another way that you can change up this project a little bit to make it your very own. The shark tooth honeycomb and the work material are placed in the workspace, and I'm ready to jump back into LightBurn software and continue the project. I framed the project out to make sure that the laser travel is always over the work material. That looks good. I've got my safety glasses, my exhaust system, and it's now time to cue in some nice background music, and we'll watch the laser do its work. Check that out. That lifted out of there perfectly clean, not a stuck piece. All these parts look absolutely perfect, and if you had a keen eye while you were watching the engraving, you'll see that I used 3 passes for all of the cutouts, but a lot of the pieces, actually all of them fell out with only 2 passes. So that extra pass, I might have a couple of these smaller pieces that fell down, might have an extra scorch mark in there. So if you're doing this at home, this is why it's important to do that test cutout to make sure that you have just the right amount of passes to make sure that your parts cut out cleanly without wasting extra time with extra passes. Here's a nice close-up of that large cutout, and then here's one of the top pieces. And we can see that with that score line that we left, this is going to make it really easy to get all of these parts just perfectly aligned once they're painted and we go to the gluing. Speaking of painting, it's time to get some color on this project. In my example, I use primarily this iron lac that is found at Hobby Lobby, but feel free, of course, to use any spray paint that you would like. I'm also going to be using some of this Krylon Fusion. This is a black paint that has a semi-metallic to it, so it has a little bit of a shimmer to add to the spookiness of this project. I found that this type of paint, though, it does kind of seep into the wood, and I need to make sure that it completely dries before putting more coats on. Otherwise, the paint just keeps soaking into the wood, and I just end up wasting a lot of the paint. That's why I like this acrylic paint. That's the iron lac. Once this dries, it really fills in a lot of the pores on the wood, and this press board, it can actually be kind of a sponge and just soak in all of that paint. Alternatively, if you don't want to use spray paint, or you're in an area like an apartment building where spray painting inside really doesn't make sense, of course, we can get a paint set and certainly do this with a little set like this and a paintbrush. I'm now ready to throw some paint onto my project. I'm going to do that off camera because we don't need to watch paint dry. A short time later and the paint is dry. Well, it's mostly dry. This paint, it's taking a little bit longer to dry. When we take a closer look, we'll also see that it is still trying to penetrate and seep into this wood, making it a little bit blotchy, and that effect I really don't mind. Now, this doesn't make this a bad paint. In fact, it's a really good paint for metals and anything where you'd like to keep that fine detail on the surface. This acrylic paint, however, though, this is a little bit thicker paint. It stays on the surface of the material, giving it a nice even coat. By the way, not that I've ever done this, but a little tip that I have is to hang on to your old cutout. That way, if you drop any of these parts before they're painted, you can use where they were cut out to ensure that the correct side is facing up when they go to get painted. It's now time for the final step in this project, and that is to bring all the pieces and parts together. And for that, there's a variety of different options. I'm going to start out with my preference, and that is to use Gorilla Glue. This is the gel type, so it has a long working time to it. It fills in some gaps, and if I put 2 pieces together that I still need to reposition them a little bit, this glue allows for that. Now this glue, I'm running low on it, so I have another version of it, and this is Bob Smith Industries. I'm not affiliated with any of these glues or adhesives. Just wanted to show you that there's a number of different options out. These two cost about the same, and they're the same type of glue. There's, of course, Elmer's glue, and this also comes in a stick form. However, just make sure that if you use something outside of like Gorilla Glue, that the glue is compatible with the paint surface. And if glue is not your thing, I do like to use double-sided sticky tape. And we'll see how much glue I have left in here if I have to get that other bottle open. And I like to just go around and we'll do a couple little dabs here and there. The cool thing about this glue is I've already got on multitudes more that I'd ever need to hold this piece on. And with all the nice scored lines that we put in on this project, I'm assured that I can get the absolute perfect alignment. It's been a few minutes and that Gorilla Glue is fully set and this Halloween ghost trick-or-treater is ready for some spooky action. Anytime that I have a project, I always like to pause at the end of the project and think about maybe some things that I would have liked to have done differently. And this project that I showed you is no difference. Starting out with, when I did the cutout, I had one too many passes, and we saw that some of those pieces fell into this shark tooth honeycomb. I would have been far better off taking an extra minute or two before starting this project to do a test cutout to figure out that I only needed 2 passes instead of 3 passes. The other thing that I would do differently on here is I think I would go with full acrylic spray paint on here. The black paint that I used on here, it just seeps into the wood too much. It really stinks and it's taking a long time for it to dry. So I really like that acrylic paint. I recommend it really on any wood product, whether you're using a brush-on type or that iron lac spray paint, which is one of my personal favorites. And I think that stuff is about $6 a can. So that's a price that is really hard to beat for a quality paint. Until next time, learn, create, and share.